A Wairarapa woman has described to the Health Select Committee the hours after an elderly neighbour suffering from terminal cancer took his own life. The woman said she went to the aid of her neighbour's wife, who was distraught as her home became a crime scene. The submission was one of many emotionally graphic and disturbing stories told today to the committee hearing submissions on voluntary euthanasia. Our health correspondent Karen Brown was there.
The Health Select Committee is partway through listening to 1,800 personal submissions on whether legislation is needed to allow medically assisted dying for terminal illness and unbearable suffering. A Wairarapa resident, Tracy van der Rij, said the answer to that question is yes, and explained to MPs about the call she received late one Saturday night a few years ago from emergency workers who wanted her to help her neighbour.
She could not get her husband off the bed that needed CPR. I turned up at the house to a very distraught neighbour, and a naked man covered in blood and other bodily fluids.
She said she got a really good insight that night into what's legal and what's not, and the ramifications.
The house was cordoned off as a crime scene. The wife was treated as a criminal. Her husband was dead. He had terminal cancer and had decided to take his own life.
Ms van der Rij said outside the committee room she was called in to give the man CPR, but in the end it wasn't needed. She told MPs a law change is needed, adding we wouldn't treat animals the way we are prepared to treat people in these situations.
It was the family that was left behind that disturbed me the most. The wife had to go to the police station instead of the funeral home. We were all questioned and it was a mess.
A Wellington palliative care clinical nurse specialist, Louise Forsyth, also backed voluntary euthanasia, saying the widespread view that good palliative care can eliminate pain and suffering is not always right.
In spite of our expert communication skills, knowledge, empathy, experience, and the medications we have available, deaths can be very sudden and unexpected, and they can be extremely protracted, exhausting and distressing.
She added she has two parents with dementia, both educated people now living in separate rest homes after 60 years of married life together.
My mother, who was also a nurse and spent most of her life caring for others, has to endure the indignity of fecal and urinary incontinence, of not being able to feed herself, and of being swung in a hoist from a wheelchair or a commode into bed.
A Wellington lawyer, Bernadette Scanlon, took the opposite view, succumbing to emotion briefly as she told MPs about being hospitalised with stage 3 cancer, now in remission.
I recall feeling utterly helpless, physically awful and alone. I hated the situation I was in. Oh God, sorry.
Please.
A situation I couldn't escape from.
She said if it was legal, vulnerable patients may become confused.
Had the choice of death actually been available to me, for once in my life, I may have taken it into consideration. And that is exactly what I didn't need or actually want.
Ms Scanlon said death should remain an outcome, not a medically administered and condoned choice. Another submitter, Neil Tonkin, said people want to retain their dignity. He told MPs about his pig hunting and motorbike riding uncle, a hero of his who's now in difficulty.
Now he's reduced absolutely to being just an absolute mess, entirely dependent, and he doesn't want to be like that. Now he's not saying that he will definitely do it. What he wants is he wants the option.
For himself, Mr Tonkin, who's in a wheelchair, said he's grateful for the health system and does not want to be a burden on it.
At a certain point in time where I'm confined to a bed that I'm going to cark it, I would rather that I was getting the big needle, just like I'm legally obliged to do to my pets when they get old and incontinent and stuff like. Because I would much rather, if there's going to be scarce health resources, not be put into keeping me alive.
The hearing of submissions continues. For Checkpoint, call Karen Brown, Aho.